Hey everyone, David here. Pardon the attire. It is currently Halloween night at the time that I'm filming this, but I'm hoping all of you guys by this point have had a very safe and very fun Halloween, despite it falling on Tuesday. That is fucking whack. So I hope that you got all your partying in the weekend before. So on that following Monday, PlayStation said, you know what? Fuck your Mario. We're about to drop a whole shit ton of stuff at Paris Games Week, and there were enough trailers that, you know what? I watched quite an awful lot of them, mainly the big ones that interest me the most, and I'm here to really briefly talk about them, starting off with my favorite superhero getting a very proper and very fleshed out treatment exclusively on the PlayStation, and that is of course Marvel's Spider-Man from Insomniac Games. They dropped a brand new trailer. It's a very short but sweet trailer. It's only about 2.5 minutes, and holy shit, it looks amazing. I mean, you got your typical Spider-Man gameplay, not so much gameplay, but it's like a mixture of both cutscenes and also in-game gameplay where you got Spider-Man going around beating the shit out of bad guys. But on top of that, you also get a much more firm look at some of these characters and how exactly they're going to look like when it comes to the actual in-game cinematics. So, the pre-rendered CG that to me personally looks rather Naughty Dog-ish. And I hate to compare one company to another, but this standard of quality to not only the voice acting but also the mocap as well as the actual design of the characters and the way that they all look human, because after dealing with certain atrocities like Mass Effect Andromeda, seeing a company to kind of somewhat come out of nowhere and deliver some rather realistic but at the same time very nuanced and very endearing designs to humanoid characters, because this is Insomniac Games. And these are the guys behind Ratchet and Clank. And Ratchet and Clank is meant to look cartoony. Even some of the human characters in that game series are meant to look cartoony. Like that one. I can't remember his name, but the guy in the green suit, he's really burly, humongous. He looks like a cartoon character. So to take a character that could have easily been a cartoon like Spider-Man and give him this somewhat realistic treatment where, again, that imagery of the characters from Peter Parker to Mary Jane to who I'm assuming is Aunt May. She's never referred to as Aunt May, but I'm assuming it might be. The only reason why I say it won't be is only because it looks like this woman, who's presumably Aunt May, works at a refuge center or like a community center or maybe a homeless shelter or whatever, and Peter kind of helps her out with that. It all looks very authentic and real, and while at the same time not being super photorealistic to delving into the uncanny valley, and I think they struck a really perfect balance that I think I'm going to be able to go along with it. But on top of that, it's interesting that they didn't focus too much on the gameplay, more so on how this story is going to kind of tie in all together, while at the same time not revealing way too much. From the gist of it, it looks like the Kingpin gets put away. However, there are repercussions that come with the Kingpin kind of going away. And one of those is Mr. Negative kind of coming out of nowhere, despite coming from a place that was good, because you could tell that this dude, Mr. Lee, his last name is Lee, I can't remember his first name, but he's in charge of this community center. It looks like he had something really good going for it until circumstances turn him into a bad guy, and now Peter has to deal with all that. On top of that, it looks like Norman Osborn is campaigning to be mayor, or at least being mayor again, and maybe that have its own little hidden agenda going on. And it's interesting that they kind of touch base with all these things, but they never give you the full details because they're not ready to do that yet. So I love that it just gives you a taste, it gives you a nice little taste of what the story is going to partake in. Marvel's Spider-Man, which is also going to bring in a couple of other classic Spider-Man villains. I don't think they're going to go through the entire rogue gallery, but there is a very brief snippet of Shocker in there, giving a good old left hook over to, or right hook, whatever it was, a hook over to our beloved Spider. And I think that's actually rather cool, and some ingenious tech is going to be involved. There's a shot of him dodging the lasers and a bunch of this other cool stuff with the gang members, and it's going to be interesting to see it all tie together. And of course, if I was to go back and rewatch that trailer a numerous amount of times and kind of look at every single shot in great detail, there's probably going to be some hidden stuff here and there. Actually, there was one shot that I noticed. It's that shot where he's in the apartment, he's putting on the mask. There's a poster of what it seems to be the famous wrestling match that Peter went to that unfortunately cost Uncle Ben his life. It said Crusher something against the Spider, and I'm assuming that that's the infamous wrestling match that kind of took Peter into this journey to fulfill his destiny as Spider-Man. And it's cool that it's kind of taking what reminds me an awful lot of the Spectacular Spider-Man route, where we're not going to do an origin story, we're not going to beat that dead horse once more. We're going to try to go into some newfound territory, and it's cool that they're somewhat doing that with Mr. Negative being from what I can tell, the main villain, not so much all these other characters that you already know, like Shocker or Kingpin. So that's rather interesting, and they're going to play much more of a supporting role that is different from what we've already gotten used to. On another side note, two things. One, it looks like, and they actually confirmed it, Mary Jane is going to be a playable character, but prior to their announcement, you can kind of see a shred of that in this trailer. There's a brief shot of what seems to be some stealth gameplay with Mary Jane, and I'm scared that that might not be handled all that well because the gameplay is going to be so refined with Spider-Man that then jumping into Mary Jane's shoes and going around trying to do the sneaky sneak without having any of these powers, it's going to feel like a step back. You know, I'm scared that that's going to happen because it's going to feel so jarring coming off of doing some actual stealth gameplay as Spider-Man, who's got these powers. You're able to like take people. We saw that in the previous video, in the previous gameplay footage that was released during E3, I believe, where Spider-Man's going around taking these guys, roping them up, taking them in, put them in like little spider cocoons. So going to Mary Jane and doing this, I'm scared that that's not going to have its own fair share of payoff. The second thing is that why in the hell, to me personally, does Norman Osborn look like Robert Redford? I just can't. I cannot not see Robert Redford in those posters. So those are my thoughts on the Paris Game Week's trailer of Marvel's Spider-Man. That's the official title. When is it coming out? I don't know. All they say is 2018. Would not be surprised at all if it comes out during the holiday season, which is a shame. But at the same time, when it comes to video games, you know that when it comes to a developer like Insomniac, they need to take their time, because I'd rather have them take their time and deliver an amazing product over them trying to rush it and it ends up becoming broken. So go ahead, support the video by hitting the like and share button, and also subscribe to support the channel. And I will see you all very, very soon. And I can't get it out of my iPod either. It's on my iPod. I'm not kidding. My girlfriend caught me listening to it one time. She considered breaking up with me.